Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Madhav Radha Madhav Radhe Radha Jaya Radha Madhav Radha Madhav Radhe Radha Madhav Radha Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Gauda Primanandi. Dayam Vishupad Paramahamsa. Parivradakacharya Stotra Sattva Sri Samad His Divine Grace. Chalabai Charanarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Skandi Biti Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Sri Prabhupada Ki. Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki. Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki. Harinam Sankirtan Ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Jainitai Gauda Pimanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. I think maybe this light we don't need, right? That light. This one you may or may not need. Depending on your need. Probably better, yeah. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Taksurandiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sadhajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusiti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Dayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed or practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, it becomes established as an irrevocable fact. idam Bhagavatam nama
Idam Bhagavatam nama
Puranam Brahmasamhitam
Puranam Brahma Samhitam
Uttama Shloka Charitam
Uttama Shloka Charitam
Chakara Bhagavan Rishi
Chakara Bhagavan
Nishreyasaya Lokasya
Nishreyasaya Lokasya
Dhanyam Swasaya Namaha.
Yam Sayanam Namaha.
This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of transcendental knowledge, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya
Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Prabhu Nityananda
Sri Advaita Gadadhara
Shri Advaita Gadadhar
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama Hare
Hare
Rama
Rama Hare Rama
Rama Rama Hare
Rama
Hare
Rama Hare Hare
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Sarabhyaya Namaha
Om Surabhyaya Namaha
Om Sarabhyaya
Om
Namaha
Surabhyaya Namaha
Om Sarabhyaya Namaha
Om Surabhyaya Namaha
Mukam karoti vasaram pangum langayate girim yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our Bhagavatam class. We are continuing in the 11th canto, chapter 17, I believe. Yes. Entitled Description of the Varnasrma System. Yesterday we read up until text 21, so we are continuing from text 22. So that's Canto 11, chapter 17, text 22. Dvitiyam
Dvitiyam
prapya
Prapya
anupurvyat
Anupurya
Well, I'm reading the word for word.
Okay. It got mixed up. It's like conjunction, I think, of two different words.
No, because it's
In the text it is Anupurya Vas. Here it is Anupurya Vyat.
in the word for word.
Yeah.
No.
In the text it is Anupurya Vyaj.
Yes.
But here it is Anupur Vyat.
Yes.
Discrepancy.
Well, we have to speak to DBT editors possibly. Okay.
Yeah.
Janma
Upanayanam
Dvijaha
Dvijaha
Vasan
Vasan
Gurukule Danto
Danta
Brahmadhita
Brahmadhita
Chahutaha Dvitiyam Prapyanupurvyaj
Dvitiyam Prapyanupurvyaj
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha
Vasan Gurukule Tanto
Vasan Gurukule Tanto
Brahmadita Chahutaha Chahutah.
Brahmadita Chahutah.
Dvitiyam Prapya Nupurvyaj.
Dvitiyam Prapya Nupurvyat.
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha.
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha.
Vasan Gurukule Danto.
Vasan Gurukule Tanto.
Brahmadhita Chahutah.
Brahmadita Chahutah.
Dvitiyam Prapya Nupurvyaj.
Dvitiyam Prapya Nupurvyat.
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha.
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha.
Vasan Gurukule Danto.
Vasan Gurukule Tanto.
Brahmadhita Chahutah.
Brahmadita Chahutah.
Vediyam prapyano purvyat
Dvitiyam Prapya Puruvyaj.
Janmopanayanam dvija
Janmopanayanam Dvija.
Sangurukule danto
Vasan Gurukule Danto.
Brahmaditi ita chahutah
Brahmadhita Chahutah.
Dvitiyam Prapyanupurvyat.
Dvitiyam Prapya Nupurvyaj.
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha.
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha.
Vasan Gurukule Danto.
Vasan Gurukule Danto.
Brahmadita Chahutah.
Brahmadhita Chahutah.
Dvitiyam prapyano purvyat
Dvitiyam Prapya Nupurvyaj.
Janmopanayanam dvijaha
Janmopanayanam Dvijaha.
Vasam gurukule danto
Vasan Gurukule Danto.
Brahmadita chahutah
Brahmadhita Chahutah. Dvitiyam.
Dvitiyam.
Second.
Second.
Prapya.
Prapya.
Achieving.
Achieving.
Anupurvyat.
Anupurvyat.
By the gradual process
By the gradual process
of purificatory ceremonies.
of purificatory ceremonies.
Dhamma.
Janma.
Birth.
Birth.
Upanayanam.
Upanayanam.
Gayatri initiation.
Gayatri initiation.
Dvijaha.
Dvijaha.
A twice born member
A twice born member
of society.
of society.
Vasan.
Vasan.
Residing.
Residing.
Gurukule.
Gurukule.
In the ashrama
In the ashrama
of the spiritual master.
of the spiritual master.
Dantaha.
Dantaha.
Self-controlled.
Self-controlled.
Brahma.
Brahma.
The Vedic
The
literatures.
Vedic literatures.
Adita.
Adhita.
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 Should study.
Should study.
Cha.
Cha.
And also understand.
And also understand.
Yes. Ahutaha.
Ahutaha.
Being summoned
Being summoned
by the spiritual
by
master.
the spiritual master.
Translation and purport by some of the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Jai. Parthasarati Prabhu ki.
Jai.
Haribo. Our Dudwala. Our Dudwala. I've not seen you for a long time. Oh, you brought some of the... Krishna has been waiting for his peanut butter. Krishna and Balaram. Okay. So translation. The twice born member of society achieves second birth through the sequence of purificatory ceremonies, culminating in Gayatri initiation. Being summoned by the spiritual master, being summoned by the spiritual master, he should reside within the Guru's ashram and with a self-controlled mind carefully study the Vedic literature. Kind of repeat after me. The twice born member of society
The twice born member of society
achieves second birth
achieves second birth
through the sequence
through the sequence
of purificatory ceremonies
of purificatory ceremonies
culminating in Gayatri initiation.
culminating in Gayatri initiation.
Being summoned by the spiritual master,
Summoned by the spiritual master,
he should reside
should have
within the Guru's ashram
within the Guru's ashram,
and with a self-controlled mind
self-controlled mind,
carefully study
carefully study
the Vedic literature.
the Vedic literature.
Here it should have also mentioned and should also understand what he is studying. Anyways, let's see in the purport. Purport: the term Dvija, or twice born, here indicates the three superior classes, namely Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, who all receive the Gayatri mantra, which signifies their second birth through spiritual initiation. One's first birth is biological or seminal and does not necessarily indicate that one is intelligent or enlightened. A young Brahmana boy, if qualified, may be initiated with a Gayatri mantra at the age of 12, and Kshatriyas and Vaishyas a few years later. In order to become enlightened with spiritual knowledge, the boy resides within the Gurukula or asrama of the spiritual master. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has established similar Gurukulas all over the world and is issuing a great call to civilized human beings to arrange for the proper education of their children. Every young boy and girl should learn to be self-controlled and should become enlightened through study of authorized Vedic literatures. In this way, unlike ordinary animals, insects, fish and birds, etc., an enlightened human being may take birth twice and thus become perfect in the knowledge that leads to ultimate liberation. The word anupurvyat in this verse indicates the system of samskaras or purificatory rites, beginning with garbhadhana samskara, or the purification of the sexual act. Aribo? Prasad? You cannot leave without taking prasad. This way get to hear a little bit about purport from Bhagavatam. Yeah, he's coming. Generally, Shudras and those who do not follow the Vedic system are not attracted to such purificatory ceremonies. Therefore, they remain ignorant of spiritual life and envious of the bona fide spiritual master. Those whose character has been civilized by a systematic cleansing process give up the tendency to be argumentative and whimsical, and instead become submissive and eager to learn in the presence of a bona fide spiritual master. Translation again. The twice born member of society achieves second birth through the sequence of purificatory ceremonies, culminating in Gayatri initiation. Being summoned by the spiritual master, he should reside within the Guru's ashram and with a self-controlled mind carefully study the Vedic literature. Very important verse. In the translation, it mentions how before Gayatri initiation, there are many other practices that one should follow, or they're referred to, of course, in the purport as samskaras, purificatory activities, which will prepare an individual to actually take what is called second birth, which takes place at the time one receives a Gayatri initiation. And that such an individual, and although there is in modern day society discussion or even possibly controversy regarding who can go to Gurukul, who should go to Gurukul, who should not go to Gurukul. Everyone should go to Gurukul. So it's quite interesting when Srila Prabhupada was speaking about Gurukula. He said many things, gave many instructions. And of course, we know the first Gurukul was in America, in Dallas. Subsequently, Srila Prabhupada wanted the children to come to India, actually to Vrindavan, but with Gurukul in Vrindavan, Gurukul in Mayapur. And Srila Prabhupada was very clear on having a different type of education for boys and girls. Means Gurukul is traditionally for young boys. And in the text here, it mentions about being summoned. Being summoned means being called. It means that one needs to have some preliminary signs or qualities. And that's also something very less known and less practiced in modern day society. I mean, even in India. But the traditional system, as nicely explained by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is that one of the foremost responsibilities of the Brahmanas in a village, because Brahmanas, they are the keepers of the culture. They are the ones who are meant to, the guardians. They are the guardians of Vedic culture. They are the guardians of Vedic knowledge. Guardian means one who is looking over, protecting, isn't it? The word guarding is there also, to guard, to protect. Yeah. So they are the natural guardians, and some of these brahmanas, of course, also become like sannyasis. They're also considered as guardians of society. And therefore, their their first and foremost thought and meditation and responsibility was to safeguard the Vedic culture. And one of the most important ways in which to safeguard, to protect, and to transfer, to continue Vedic culture, is that young boys are properly evaluated and selected. So most of us probably have not been raised in a village, but we can relate to the fact that when one is raised in a village, when one is born in a village and remains there at least up until his as a young man or young girl, then people in the village, they all know each other. You cannot hide anything in the village, practically. Very difficult. Very difficult to keep secrets. Everyone knows other people's situation. Even neighboring villages, the next village they know also. But so it means that actually the brahmanas, they're the ones who perform the different samskaras. So they know from birth, they know people in the village. So they for many years are observing, because one of the important signs to select and to understand an individual is simply to observe, to look at one's behavior, what he's telling, what he's doing. One of my godbrothers, I will not tell his name, went to Tirupati a few years ago because they have Gurukul. Has anyone seen a Gurukul, Tirupati? Yeah? Okay.
One of my senior batchmate from school, he finished his master's and PhD.
He finished his master's in Gurukul? Okay. So they have, in Tirumala.
Yeah.
Um,
Chinnajaya Swami.
they have nice Gurukul. And so this godbrother of mine, he brought his young boy. He was thinking, I would like to admit my son in the Vaishnava Gurukul. So he was waiting to actually meet with the head of the Gurukul, headmaster. And it took a little time. I guess he was tied up. And meantime, maybe he waited 1 hour or something. And meantime, his son was kind of, maybe interacting with some other boys or doing whatever. So anyway, by the time he finally met with the Gurukul headmaster, and the Gurukul headmaster, of course, is accustomed to meeting people who have such interest and desire to have. So one of the first things that the Gurukul headmaster related to him was that I've been observing your son. He's not actually meant for Gurukul. Just by looking at his activities, his mood, because people who are educators, those who are Gurukul headmasters or teachers, anyone who is an educator, he will, it's one of the signs or qualities, he has to have a sense of observation to understand the mentality, the mood, the character of an individual. So it was the tradition, because very often people, they ask, our own devotees, they ask, Maharaj, what is my Varna? Can you tell me what? I don't know who I am. Who am I? No, what is my Varna? Because as devotees, we don't think Varna so much because we're all devotees. We're all aspiring devotees. We are all aspiring Vaishnavas. So just like a few days back, maybe a week back or so, at the end of the essay on Gita Nagari, Srila Prabhupada was explaining about how how to select an individual for Gurukul, or what are the ways. Prabhupada had mentioned about astrology and what is it, psychological tests, a few things like that. So, so Gurukul is of course a very central and important theme. I mean, and this is the beginning of the presentation by Lord Krishna on the subject matter of Varnasrma. We could say in many ways that Gurukul is like the heart of Varnasrama, because it's like we're all sitting here, and we can only be sitting here because we have a heart. If you take out the heart of anyone, he can't sit anywhere, right? The heart is like what makes, what keeps an individual alive. So the heart of the Varnasrama system is very much the Gurukula, where individuals, here it mentions about the three natural superior orders. We discuss how these are the natural leaders in society because they have very heavy responsibility. Like a brahmana has a very heavy responsibility. He's meant to look after the soul, the soul of individuals. So he's like the spiritual physician. We know the importance of a doctor, ordinary doctor, medical doctor, and a doctor can save lives, isn't it? If he's a qualified doctor, he can diagnose and he can cure diseases, can save lives. So in a similar way, on a higher level, on another dimension, a spiritual doctor, a brahmana is a spiritual doctor, he can save lives in the sense of through knowledge, through the cultivation of knowledge, allow an individual to actually become successful in life by becoming self-realized and leaving the material world, actually. So, so therefore, the importance of that system of Gurukula, and I suppose one could ask the question, should ask the question, why we don't have so many Gurukulas. And someone had shared, I think some of you might have seen, how, especially before, I suppose, the British came, before the British came, there were Gurukulas everywhere. It is mentioned that there used to be in India, 7 lakhs of Gurukula. That means practically speaking, in every village. So therefore, this is nicely explained here, how one of the special features of the Gurukula is that a young boy needs to be needs to live in the ashram of the spiritual master and needs to be learning especially, what is it? Tapasya brahmacharyena samena cha damena cha. Self-control, control of the mind, control of the senses, by the practice of tapasya, or discipline. Yeah. So these two things are important. Following the different samskaras that are prescribed in the Shastra, and which will prepare an individual to become twice born to receive Brahmana Diksha. So before we go to a few other texts we wanted to read this morning, any comment on this so far? Nothing special.
Not all the boys can go to Gurukula, then is that understanding?
Okay, good point or good question. Whether all the boys can go in the Gurukula or not. Yeah, right. One needs to understand what is called formal and non-formal education. Formal education is traditionally, things have changed in modern times. So formal education traditionally means a structured education over many years, and where individuals have specific aptitudes to study, because the thrust of that type of education, formal education, is more intellectual. So formal educational traditionally is Gurukula, and because in any given society or community, it's a small percentage of individuals who have the ability, to sit down for a good amount of time, generally hours, many hours every day, to hear, and as mentioned in the text itself, not only to hear but to understand, to comprehend what is being discussed and presented. So therefore, traditionally, Prabhupada mentions there's nothing wrong actually with being illiterate. Although if we proclaim that too loudly, we will have a lot of critics. Because the United Nations, they have their different millennium goals where everyone should become literate. The higher it is considered that the highest level of literacy in a country or in a state within a country is the sign of educated persons. And here in India, I think the highest level of literacy is in Kerala. Is it? Yeah.
They have different ways of gauging them, so it is all.
Yeah. It's connected with statistics also, and so you
they
can
get a lot of manipulation.
You can, yeah. So that is. So formal education, Prabhupada mentions that actually previously many people, not only many people, majority of people actually did not know how to read and write, were illiterate. But Illiteracy does not mean uncultured. There's a big difference. As a matter of fact, most people who are educated today are lacking in culture, because culture has to do with a character, has to do with interaction with others, has to do with respect, has to do with morality, things like that. So traditionally, it means that the majority of young boys would not go to that type of school. And they would take up what is called non-formal education. So non-formal education you don't need a building, because non-formal education is what we understand today as apprenticeship, or skill development of, if your father is a carpenter, then you just be with him, and you just carry the instruments, the hammer and the saw and whatever, and then slowly, gradually, by seeing and by helping, the son of a carpenter becomes a carpenter, isn't it? Without having to go to school, formal school. So these are the two main types of education: formal, non-formal, and of course, Prabhupada mentioned how Gurukul is for the younger boys. Then he spoke about a Varnasrma college for the older boys. And in Varnasrma college, Prabhupada wanted that all of the Varnas be taught. And we could also say, which is also logical, that the more formal education, especially for the higher classes in society, the longer time one will spend. Just like Brahmanas, they spend more time in receiving their formal education. Kshatriyas also receive formal education, but they spend less time, and Vaishyas even less, you see. Even for Vaishyas, they may not even spend very much time. But because they are very actual Vaishyas. It's just like we don't see so many Brahmanas. We also don't see so many Kshatriyas, and we also don't see so many Vaishyas. Real Vaishyas are natural Vaishyas are also rare, because they are meant to have, as described in Bhagavad Gita and also Bhagavatam, certain we can say built-in tendencies, qualities, aptitudes, right? Which is all connected with karma. You know, one is born having some of these qualities. Of course, it doesn't mean that automatically. One still needs to receive training. Therefore, training and education is very essential, fundamental. But that's why, coming back to the duty and responsibility of Brahmanas, they are meant to to select. Just like here it mentions, a young boy will be summoned or called. Means will be selected based on the qualified judgment and decisions of the local Brahmanas. And it's understood when you have a society that is based on the Vedic concepts and principles, in addition to what we call non-formal education, there's also informal. There's formal, non-formal, then informal. Informal means through um, through art, through culture, through dramas, through associating with individuals, we learn so many things as well, isn't it? So that the majority of the education for the majority of people in society is generally within the category of non-formal or informal education. Yeah, and therefore a very small percentage who are having the natural aptitudes will be therefore attending Gurukula. So it's not maybe initially because Gurukula is not really established. So initially we don't need to be, probably we cannot be so strict in our selection, but there are, of course, activities also in Gurukula that where young boys can be helping in different ways as well, and get a kind of a general training, but they will be, one can understand, very quickly, within 1 or 2 weeks, who's actually able to sit in class and or read from Shastra hours and hours together, and not only read but also understand, isn't it? As pointed out here. So I think in terms of our situation, in terms of devotees, it will take some time, but definitely, yeah, to come to that point, because we don't have communities really. We have so few communities. If one counts how many, let's say, farm communities, anyone would like to guess how many farm communities we have in the world, or how many we have in India? Not many.
In count on fingers.
Yeah, you can count. And in many of these communities, there are not many families. A community means there must be families, because families means children, and then when you have children, then you can have the school educational system.
Also, Guru Maharaj, I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
They had mentioned samskaras are necessary before a boy becomes Gurukula boy becomes Dvija.
Yes.
How is samskara influencing their accepting of Gayatri mantra and reception of it?
How the samskaras are
Influences.
affecting their accepting Gayatri mantra.
And the reception of Gayatri mantra.
Well, because every samskara is meant, as the very word samskara means, purificatory process. So by performing these samskaras, one becomes more purified. So obviously, the more purified one is, then the more he will benefit and be able to take up the responsibility when he accepts sacred thread, isn't it? In a general way, it will help an individual to, for example, know that he's part of a culture, a particular culture, Vedic culture, and it's just like hair cutting ceremony has particular significance, and then I mean, even before that, the taking grains, writing the alphabet, all of these samskaras are performed traditionally with not just the act itself, but generally Brahmanas and other Vaishnavas, devotees, attend these ceremonies, and there's there's kirtan, there's prasadam, there's pravachan.
Ah, maybe I think I should move a bit question. Gayatri mantra is also purificatory in
Yes.
nature. So, what is the special significance of samskaras in that?
What is the special significance
of
of?
samskaras in that way? Because Gayatri is also purificatory, and Mahamantra we chant is also purificatory.
Yeah, well, one could say that all we have to do is chant Hare Krishna and we don't need anything, any samskaras. But they're all helping one to become more purified, and they all have their specific, unique feature or purpose. For example, Gayatri, when it is generally only after one receives Gayatri, he can begin to study the Vedas.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah, right. So each ceremony has a particular purpose or function, and they're all, dealing with different aspects of one's growth and evolution, etc., like that. So you don't like samskaras? Not like that.
I wanted to make sure because
Well, I'm sure our Goswamis have written about that, and there must be some more detailed explanation, of
maybe
course.
I have to check Haribhakti also.
Yeah. We generally know a little bit, unless one takes the necessary time to maybe read more in detail, the significance and the purpose, etc., like that, which entails reading maybe some specific books or maybe some particular commentaries on some of our acharyas. Then one can gain more insight into all of the different samskaras. Okay. Anything else?
So, how did the boys who didn't go to Gurukula, how did they learn the culture? Because pretty much everyone followed Vedic culture, even though they were formally educated or not. Was it within family and the community?
Yeah. How do they?
How did the boys who didn't get a formal education through the Gurukula, how did they learn and follow the culture, Vedic culture?
Once going to the Gurukul?
The ones not going.
Oh, the ones not going to. Okay, I see. Yeah. Well, because in a community where the majority of the members, let's say in a village, the culture is being, knowledge and culture is something that is lived and experienced on a daily basis. For example, in a village where there are qualified brahmanas and where Vedic culture is being followed, they traditionally they would have various recitations, for example. So through through hearing, because they would be reciting and sharing stories from the traditionally, isn't it, from Mahabharata, Ramayana. So there were individuals who were specialized in presenting those in a very attractive, interesting, educational kind of way. So they would receive their education by associating with the members of that society, by attending, because in those days, one did not have the kind of distractions that we have in terms of television or, well, cell phones. Forget about television. Television is old-fashioned nowadays. Everyone has, you have your television built in your cell phone and whatnot. So so those who did not go to a school, who did not attend formal education, um, uh, to the extent that the individuals, especially the brahmanas in that village, the elders in that village were I would say, serious and mature in living that culture, and because living that culture means to also automatically give instructions, and there would be, if we look at the activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we get a glimpse of how society, they were performing dramas. Drama is a very important part of our Vaishnav tradition, for example. And our Goswamis have actually given guidelines how to write a drama, how to write books also, or how to write poetry. Huh?
They have written plays on their...
Yeah, they've written plays, and one of our, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, some years back, he that book is there. He wrote a drama on the passing, the departure of Srila Prabhupada, and he came to know. He studied a little bit what was the suggested guidelines from our acharyas. So even though one would not attend formal Gurukula, the whole, in a Vaishnava village, in a Vedic village, the everyone is fixed on the same goal, isn't it? The culture is a Krishna conscious culture, and therefore so many opportunities were there, and it was up, of course, it was up to each individual to take advantage, to attend, because it would take place on a daily basis, right? They would have these, like in the Risa was mentioning, this Bhagavat Tungi or something. Even now in some places, like in a village, they have a particular place where that is where they have Krishna Katha, So in other words, that's the society itself, the whole social structure. That's why Varnasrma structure, when it is in place, facilitates automatically in so many different ways by associating with individuals who are developed in consciousness, by attending different functions that are not temple activities are there, but over and above that, there are cultural activities that are taking place. And it's like in those days, before the advent of modernization, etc., people were accustomed to hearing from others, or to hearing recitations, etc., like that. That's how they would be able to maintain and advance, not only just maintain, but advance in education, in spiritual consciousness, etc., like that. Yeah.
This will actually help everybody to become a Vaishnava, not necessarily the Brahmana class, but because the other three classes are also following culture.
Yes.
And they can.
Yes. The whole goal and purpose. I think it's important to explain that when we say that only a small percentage would go to Gurukul, it's not in any way any kind of discrimination, isn't it? It is simply a natural kind of selection that is there. Just like, what is the percentage of people who sign up for PhD course. I mean, anyone is entitled to do that.
It's like sannyasis. We always have only a few number of.
Yes, there are certain things.
They are also discussed.
Yeah, there are certain activities and certain positions. It's like, how many people, everyone can become the prime minister. How many actually become? How many actually qualified to become also? So yeah, the whole Vedic culture and in particular the whole Varnasrma setup is there to maximize the and to facilitate to the greatest extent one's ability to receive the maximum in terms of Vedic education and to advance ultimately in Krishna consciousness, because the whole goal and purpose is to help individuals and that community to raise to higher and higher levels of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So there's and also when things are properly in place, when you have actually qualified leaders who are not exploiting their dependents, then there's that natural, that was pointed out also in the Prabhupada's essay on Gita Nagari, there's this natural harmony that is created amongst the members of society. And even though one is not envious because that one is going to Gurukul, or that one is a Brahmana, or that one is a king. One may, of course, but generally not. So I think we can close for now. Jai Grantaraj Bhagavatam ki, Jai Sri Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanande. Yeah, I think they stopped, eh? Oh, okay. It did not stop?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
Stay?
Huh?
No, I thought maybe clapping is.
No. I thought at one point he was.
Actually, battery was low.
Battery.
Yeah, it shows for 20%.
Below 20%. That's why some notification.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, 20 is not so low. But anyways, it's a sign now. No, I thought because sometimes if I don't remove some of the recording, it gets full. Yeah, right. Yeah. So.